Alright, hey guys. So if you remember in my last video, I said at the end that I was thinking of maybe extending my basic chat tutorial to include more advanced features, and I said to leave me a comment if you guys want me to do that. I didn't actually expect any responses, but I had a couple, so that's why I'm creating this video. One person asked me about private messaging and security implications. I'm going to be doing private messaging first because I just get really bored by security, which is a really bad attitude to have. But anyway, I'm more interested in doing the private messaging one first. So before actually getting into private messaging, we have to add usernames to the chat. So that's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to add usernames to the chat and then also display a list of all the users currently connected, like you usually see on chat applications. And of course, adding the usernames to each message so you know exactly who's sending each message. So the first thing we're going to have to do is clean up some of the markup and the CSS. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to have it so that whenever a user connects, they see a form to enter a username, basically. And then after they enter that username, the chat div right here will be shown. So before that, they don't see it. There are other ways of doing this where, you can just automatically generate a guest username and then have the user change that instead of submitting a form first. But anyway, this is how I'm going to do it right now. So I'm going to create a wrap for the nickname and then a little message saying enter a username and then a form, basically the same as the send message form. Make it set nick for set nickname. Add my inputs. And my submit button, of course. Alright, so that looks good for the nickname wrap. So the only thing is, when a user submits a nickname, we want to make sure that they're submitting a unique nickname, that no one else has picked the nickname that they just chose. So if they pick a nickname that was already chosen by another user, we want to show them an error message. So I'm going to add a little element to add the error message to if we get one. So that'll be nickname error. Alright, and then I'm going to wrap this entire thing in a content wrap. I'm going to wrap the chat features in a chat wrap. I know it's a lot of wraps, but the reason I'm putting all this in another div is so that I can float it with the div for users. So usually when you enter a chat, you see the chat on the left side and then users on the right side. I mean, sometimes the users are at the top, but usually they're on the right, I think. So in order to do that, I'm just going to float the chat wrap to the left. We can also add a border to it too, just cause. I think that's right. Is it solid and then the color? Okay, well, we'll see. And it's pretty much it for the markup. Oh, of course, we also have to hide the content wrap because we don't want the user to start submitting messages before they've picked their username. So that's just going to be a display none. And we can go look at this. So let me start my app. I'm just getting to the directory and then starting the app by node app.js. I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. I think I might have forgotten, but I'm putting the code for this on on my website now, so you can go look at that if you need to download the code from the last video, or you want to download the finished code for this video. It's on my website, and that link should be in the description. Yeah, Reddit is my homepage if you saw that. But also, anyway, so you see that we just have a username form right here, and you don't see the chat that we had before or anything. So far so good. Now let's add some JavaScript. So first I'm going to get some elements with jQuery like I did before. So we'll need the nickname form, that would be nickname form, and then I'm going to remember the hashtag this time, set nickname, and also the error, nickname error. Oh, and the nickname box itself. Alright. So we want to attach an event handler to the nickname form whenever a user submits it. So same thing with the message form. First thing we want to do, like before, is prevent the default behavior, and then we also want to, anyway, first let's emit our event. So we can just emit to an event like new user, and then we're going to send the value of the nickname box, nickbox.val. And then this is something different that we didn't do with the message form. Since we're checking to see whether or not the username is valid, we're going to do something different depending on whether it's valid or not, right? If it's valid, we can show the chat. If not, then we're going to have to display an error message. So that's where this callback comes in. We can send data from the server to our function and get it as a callback, and then change what we do depending on the value of that data. So, and then after we do all that, we want to get rid of the value in the nickname box. It won't matter if the nickname is valid, but if it's not, we still want to clear it. Okay. And so now let's go to the server side. So on the server side, since we want to display a list of our usernames to the client, we're going to need to keep track of the nicknames some way. And we can do that by just having an array for all that. So I'm just going to create an array called nicknames, and that'll be where we put the nicknames of the users that are currently connected to the chat. So now let's receive our event, socket.on new user function data callback. Notice how I have the callback here since we're sending data back to the client from this function. Alright, so how do we check whether or not the nickname is valid? Basically, all we're doing right now is checking whether or not another user has already taken that nickname. So in other words, we need to check whether the nickname the user entered is already in our array. So we can do that by doing if nicknames dot index of, and then passing it the data, is not equal to -1, then we're just gonna send the callback data back as false. So what we're doing here is we're checking to see if the index of whatever nickname the user entered is not equal to -1, because that means that the nickname exists somewhere in the array, right? If the index we got back wasn't -1, then it would be somewhere in the array. So if that happens, then we're just going to send false back to the callback. We can send, any data you want here. We could do something like is valid and then send false if we wanted, but since this is so simple, we can just send back the actual Boolean false. Alright, and then if it's not in the array, then we can add it to the array. Before doing that though, I want to add it to the socket itself. So this is convenient because basically we're storing the nickname of each user, which each user has its own socket, within the socket itself. And it'll be clear exactly why this is convenient later on in this video, but for now just add the nickname to socket.nickname so we can have it as a property of the socket. And then we can push this value onto the array. And finally, let's emit the let's just do usernames. Let's emit the nicknames array to all of the users so that they can update their list since someone new joined. So that's what we've got here. And then we also need to set the callback as true. So that's what I'm going to do there. And now back on the client side, so this data here is the true or false that we set back here. And so if the data is true, then that means we can hide the nickname form, which that was just nick wrap. Well, dot hide. And then we want to show the content wrap. Alright. But if we sent false back from the server, we want to display an error message. So let's put that in our little nickname error .html. So we're just replacing whatever was there before, which right now would be nothing. And we can say that username is already taken. Try again. Alright. Cool. So now let's test that out. I'm going to restart my app. Okay, and I'm also going to look at my JavaScript console just to make sure. Smitha, that's my name. And yay! Okay, so that was valid, so we entered the username, no one else had it, and then the chat displayed. Now let's try it again, except since I'm already in it, now if we put in Smitha, it should work. Good. So we've got that part working. Now the next thing we want to do is display the list of users. So recall that we emitted the event usernames over here. So if we do socket.on usernames on the client side, we can get that. So what we want to do is loop through the array that we sent, which was the nicknames array on the server side, and add each nickname to the list. So first I'm just going to create an empty string, and then I'm going to loop through, starting with the first username, and then going until the last one, so I is less than data.length, and I plus, and each time I'm just going to add the username, so that would be data I plus a line break. And then after doing that, we have to actually add that to the users div. So wait, actually, let me put that up here. Var users equals getting that div with jQuery. And then here we can use the .html again and just add in our string that we created. Okay, awesome. Let's try that. Refresh this page and refresh this. So add myself here. Awesome. My name appeared right there. And then if I add somebody else, Dobby, then you'll notice that Dobby appears on my other tab, and Smitha also appears on this tab, so we get the entire list. Cool. Now that we have that, that's looking good. But there's one problem. So let me exit out of Dobby. Yep, you'll notice that Dobby is still active right there. And if I try to get into the chat again as Dobby, it tells me the username is already taken. We need to create a way, we need to create a way to get rid of users when they disconnect. And luckily, socket.io has a really convenient method to do that. We just do socket.on_disconnect, and this event emits whenever a user disconnects from the server. So socket.on_disconnect. First, the first thing we want to do in this function is check whether or not they have a nickname set. So that's just if socket.nickname. Well, if they don't, then we just want to return from the function. We don't have to do anything. So this would be the case if they came to the page, looked at the form, and were like, that's too much work to think of a username or something, and then just disconnected before picking one, then they wouldn't have their socket.nickname set, so we just return out of there. If they did, though, then we need to remove it from the nicknames array. So right here, we can use nicknames.splice. So this function just gets rid of elements in an array. And then the first parameter is the index you want to start at. So nicknames.indexOf socket.nickname. That'll give us the index of the user's nickname. And then the second parameter is how many elements you want to remove from that index. And we just want to remove that one user, so I'm just going to put in 1 there. And then after doing that, we want to update the user list on the client side. So we just want to do io.sockets.emit usernames again. Instead of copying that code here, I'm just going to put this code in another function called update nicknames. So function update nicknames. It might not really be necessary for just one line of code, but assuming we might want to do something more advanced here, I don't really want to have the code replicated in 2 different places, so that's why I'm just putting it in one function. So there's nothing different to do here since we're just using the same method on disconnect. Let's try that out and see how it goes. Alright, Smitha, Dobby, and let's do another person. Hermione. Okay, let's get rid of Hermione. It's just me and Dobby. And then getting rid of Dobby, just me. Okay, so awesome. Now when users leave, they're actually gone. And Dobby can re-enter if he wants to now. That's nice. So everything's looking good. The last thing I want to point out is, yes, when submitting messages, the usernames are still not displayed by them. So this might be okay on 4chan or something, but for our chat we probably want to display usernames next to our messages. So we can do that pretty easily. We just want to update our send message function. And so that's really easy. Instead of just sending the message that was received, we can send multiple things. So we can send the data as message, MSG, and then we can also send the username. I'm just going to call it Nick, and we can get the user's username by socket.nickname. That's why storing the variable in socket.nickname is convenient, because it's stored in every single socket, so when a single user sends a message, we can just get that property from their own socket. So that's awesome. And now let's just update our client code. It's here on new message. So we're going to change this into data.message.msg. And let's make the username bold. So data.nick plus e. We can add a colon and a space. And now let's try it out. Smitha, Dobby, Miney. Oh, yay! My name appears next to it. Hi, Smitha. Oh my god, favorite house elf ever. House elf writes. Okay, so awesome. Now we have nicknames displaying with each message. So this chat has really been improved quite a bit. So I think that's all I'm going to cover in this video. The next video is probably going to be private messaging unless I realize something needs to be done before that. So once again, leave me any comments with questions, suggestions, criticisms, whatever. You can also tweet at me. Yeah, all that is in the description, and same with downloading code. So thanks for